Hi, I'm going to introduce particles for Maya, the potential use for architectural design, and then I'll walk through the essentials for using Maya particles. So what are Maya particles? Well, literally they're particles with various shapes, sizes, uh, and properties or attributes that are acted on by forces and act on each other. These forces include nucleus forces and non-nucleus forces. Both nucleus and non-nucleus forces, they share many characteristics, but non-nucleus forces are particularly those relating to forces that act on an object. Nucleus forces include interactions with passive and interactive objects in a dynamic simulation framework. They're applied by a nucleus solver, which can be associated with specific particle systems. Maya has preset attributes for commonly used types of particles. Since these are all based on adjustable attributes, they're very alterable. A powerful feature of Maya is the use of attribute ramps, in which randomizers and multipliers are used for a more natural look. Here's an example of a liquid particle system that was done using Maya, and showing you an idea of the capabilities of using it. Particle systems are organized into various nodes or groupings of properties and methods of interaction systems. So you have emitters, particles, nucleus systems, field vectors, and a few others. And these can be related to one another. So for instance, you can have a particle that's being produced by an emitter that's being controlled by a nucleus solver, and you can have a nucleus solver that's applied to different particles, or you can have different types of particles coming out of an emitter, or you can have an emitter producing the same types of particles as a different emitter is. So it's organized with these nodes. Here's a few examples of the nodes. Every object has a node relating to its initial creation, and then there may be a node relating to its shape, its shading, its material properties, a node for an emitter, a node for a nucleus solver, and everything that's related to that one item that you select will all show up in the attribute editor. Maya is not the best program for use for most architectural purposes. It's difficult to form dimensionally precise geometry and to create any sort of working drawings from Maya. But Maya is excellent for conceptual modeling with its easy form manipulation, animation, and quick renderings. Models can be imported from SketchUp, Revit, Rhino, and 3ds Max, among other programs, which makes it all the better. Here's a few ways Maya can be used for architectural purposes. It could be used to show wind movement through animate water features and render them in action, add rain or snow to a scene, or you could turn information into visual representations using sprites, which are two-dimensional links to information that can be attached to points that are part of the particle system. So they'll be displayed throughout, and as you play the animation, you can pause it at a certain point and render it, and your information will be interacting with the system you've set up. Here's a few examples of some powerful ways Maya can be used for visualizations. At the top, there's an example of geometry instancing, where multiple copies of a mesh can be assigned to points or particles that behave in a certain way, and then they can be rendered. Here's three more examples of ways that particles or fluid particles can be rendered in motion to create different scenes, different effects, to capture the idea of what your design's about. And then as you get more advanced in your use of Maya, you can start to create pretty complex animated scenes and take images from those. So before we get into the program itself, I wanted to point out this device that is 3D connection cells that makes 3D modeling much more efficient, less headache trying to zoom in and select certain points. It's the 3D mouse. I just have the $75 Space Navigator education one, and it has made a world of a difference. It makes it really smooth and easy to zoom in just where you need to go to select and do your operations. So let's jump into Maya and start going through the Maya interface. Maya opens up and you see this interface, and it has several layers to optimize workflows. There's at least 3 ways to access pretty much any command. At the top you have a common menu, which is the first 6 or so menu items. And then after that you have specific menu items, which you can choose through the drop-down list and switch between different sets of menus, and you can see them change up there. A third way to reach any menu option is by holding the spacebar while hovering over the view panel in the center. You have each of the specific menu set menus right here, and then the standard set up above, and then specific to what you're doing in the center. The view panel can be set to various layouts in a couple of ways. At the left, there's some custom presets. These layouts include panels, graphs, and other items that can be assigned to the different panels depending on what type it is. Another great way that Maya streamlines workflow is by the use of a shelf here. We have menus that are customizable and set up for specific workflows, and so you can create your own and throw in tools that you'll be using for certain types of work. Next, let's look at the panels, which is the center display area. Panels can include views, they can include outlines, they can include graphs, and many of the frequently used layouts, standard ones, can be accessed on the left hand side over here, and you can just click through a few of those and see some of the different options for layouts. And then you can adjust them on your own as well. If you right click and hold, it has a whole another set of options, and you can also come up on the panel menu and go to layouts and choose different options. Let's go ahead and look at how you can change the panels. So let's change these to some more of the orthographic views. There's front, and let's do side. You can maximize a panel by hovering over it and tapping the spacebar, and you can return to your split layout by, again, tapping spacebar. Let's look at some of the menu items that show up in the panels. In a view panel, you have view, shading, lighting, show, render, and panels. Let's go through some of the items that you may use more commonly in these. Under view, there is frame all and frame selection, where if you get lost, you can click frame all and it will jump to your model and what you're working on. Default view is a very useful tool if your view gets messed up and you want it to be at that standard set view. You can click default view. You can also create bookmarks, which that's like your set views in Rhino. And in fact, you can transport those set views from Rhino to Maya and from Maya to Rhino using different plugins. So then in shading, you can choose how your items are displayed. So you can have a mix of wireframe, uh, um, sh shading, texture, and set up different configurations. In show, you can choose what you see or don't see. When things get pretty complex, sometimes items get in the way. In render, you can choose what render settings are used for when you are looking through the viewport and choose to show it as rendered. Um, these are in order of quality, so the viewport 2.0 is higher of these three. And then in the panels, you can choose what type of panel you're going to see. So you'll use a lot of these. And you can also tear off a panel so that it is floating. Here's an outliner, and we can just switch back to perspective easily. One other item in the menus here that I want to bring to your attention is image plane under the view menu, where you can import an image or a movie to set to the background for when you render it, so that you have background to your model instead of just this gradient behind it. Now let's look at the icons directly below the panel menus. A few of the ones that you may use more is show or hide grid. Then this set right here is display settings. Rather than going up and trying to pick through the menu, you have these quick access ones: wireframe, smooth shade, wireframe and shaded, textured, use lights, shadows, and different types of render views. You may notice this view cube, so you can use this to rotate around. You can also set a view as home, so that when you click home, it jumps to that view. Next, go ahead and select the split panel layout with outliner, shown here. This shows an outline of everything that's in the model so far. Right now, since we don't have anything created, all that's shown is the views, view cameras. Everything in Maya that is created or assigned has attributes associated with it. And that's what popped up over on the right hand side here. You can also, if that's not up when you select something, you can push Control A to bring it up. Or you can go up to these four little menu items and click the one that says Attribute Editor. So even cameras, they have settings for attributes over here that you can alter. So there's focal length, you can do angle of view, and so these allow you to set it up so that you get the right view that you want. But like I said, if you end up messing it up, you just go up to View, Default View, and defaults back to the original settings. And here's the perspective. This is the kind of initial node that appears with every item you have. It has kind of the original settings, and then it has settings that are associated with shape, and then if you have other types of information that get added onto it, it keeps adding more and more nodes. Also, on top of being able to change settings after something is existing in your model, many tools allow you to choose options before creating. So, for instance, any of these that have a box next to it, if you click that box, it'll bring up options for the initial creation of that object. Another place to access these pre-settings is if you double click on any of your shelf items, it'll, or it should bring up, how about this? There we go. It brings up those options. Most tools also, if you select, these are your common modification tools. So you have 3 different selection options: move, rotate, and scale. These also have tool settings for how they function, which can be accessed up here in the top right corner. And you can, for instance, you can choose soft select so that you can, when you select something, it will modify the points around it with diminishing scale or significance effects the farther away from that point it gets. Let's go ahead and jump into how to create some simple geometry. Go up to the menu and click Create, go to NURBS Primitives, and then go down to Plane and click the checkbox next to it. This brings up the options for what we're going to do for creating the plane. Go ahead and set the width and length, and then push create. Doesn't matter right now what you put for everything, because we're going to show how you can change it in a second. So push create, and there's our plane. Select the plane in object mode, which you can do by holding down the right mouse button and go to object mode. It should have already been in it, but just to be safe. Or you can go up to the status bar, which is all these items up here, and you have 3 options for selection. You can select by hierarchy, you can select by component type, or by object type, and then you can turn on or off what type of object you want to select. There's also hotkey for going between object mode and other. That's F8. If you push F8, now it's in component mode, and now it's in object mode. Go ahead and turn off the grid so we can see our object more clearly. Your object may just look like a wireframe. You can add shading to it by clicking this cube. And so now that you have it selected, you can open up the attribute editor. If it's not up, again, click the icon or press Ctrl A. And we're going to go in and add some subdivisions to the geometry. Here's the initial creation node, and then the next one is a shape node, and then it has any other ones. This one's for material node. So for adding the subdivisions, actually we need to click on the Make NURB Plane, and then here you have the patches U, patches V. Go ahead and bump that up significantly, maybe even up to, oh, that might be too much, about 30. Now, here's how you can use some of these tool settings. Come over to the Select tool, short hotkey is Q. Double click on it or click in the top right corner to bring the tools, and select Soft Select. Now, right click on the object and go to Control Vertex, and then just select a point somewhere, and notice it has this gradation of color away from it, showing which ones are fully selected, and then it diminishes as it goes away. So now when we go to manipulate it, you can see how it differs from just moving the whole surface. Now if we use move, it'll warp it with varying degree based on how close it is to the center of your selection. So in order to navigate around, if you don't have a 3D mouse, which you can see how nice and easy it is to rotate around and view your object, then the ways that you can navigate are one with the view cube up in the corner, or you can hold Alt left mouse button is rotate, Alt middle mouse button to pan, and Alt right mouse button to zoom. That's a smooth zoom. So if you go move it to the left or right, it zooms in really smoothly. Use the scroll wheel, it's going to be choppy. We're almost to the point of being able to start working with particles, but before we do that, I want to show you some basics for animation. Go ahead and select your object. Make sure it's in object mode. Let's jump over to our channel box. So for doing animations, we start dealing with time. At the bottom, you have a scaled in or close up time bar right here, and then this bar is the section of the time frame that you're viewing. You can click these end tabs and pull it to make it so you can view the whole time, or you can zoom in. Go ahead and increase the number of frames up to 400, and then we have the play and backtrack set buttons. If you select your object and go to frame 1 and then bring up the channel box, then we can set a keyframe at the start, either by clicking channels and key selected if we have different items selected here, or we can just press S and it keys it. You can see they turn red. So then if we take this shape, jump up to a later time and move it, perform some manipulations, maybe let's rotate it around a little bit, and then set a new key with that new information. Then when we jump to the start and push play, Maya smoothly transitions it from one to the other. And that's really basic how the animation works. One other thing you want to do is right click down in the time area, frame area, and say playback speed, play every frame, max real time. That'll make sure that it doesn't mess up while you're dealing with the particles. Now let's go ahead and start making some particle systems. I'm going to turn my grid on just so I get a reference. Go up and select your polygons menu set and go to create polygon primitive cylinder and click the options next to it. Go ahead and set the items to similar to what I have set up here. Click create, and there it is. We can move it up using the move tool and bring it just about where the top is, and then it'll show you just about where it is, so it'll be right on the plane, and then you can type in manually to snap it in its exact place where you want it. Now let's also go up and create a polygon primitive plane, and then click the options next to it. Go ahead and set it up similar to the settings that I have here. Width of 5, height of 2, width divisions 50, height divisions 20. Click create. Now go ahead and move this over and then go up to your channels. In the bottom left corner you see a XYZ symbol, and that tells you which axis is which helps you to know what you want to move or scale. We're going to go ahead and rotate this around Y first, so rotate Y, let's do 90, and we'll move it a little over from the pole. And now we want to rotate it around Z90. And then go ahead and move it up to near the top of the pole and adjust it, fine tune it, get it pretty close to the pole but not touching. Next, you're going to want to, with the plane selected, go up to the menu set End Dynamics, click on End Mesh, and click Create End Cloth. That makes it a dynamic surface, so it's going to react with different forces that we apply to it. Go ahead and right click on the plane and click on Vertex. You might need to go to your select options and deselect soft select if you had that still selected. And then right click on the pole, click on Vertex, then select the upper and lower right hand corner vertex points on the plane, and then the nearest vertex point on the pole to each one. Then go up to End Constraint and click Component to Component. And now it should have those set constraining it. Next, we want to go ahead and apply a color to our flag. Just real simple. So if we go up to Window and then Rendering Editors, click Hypershade, and we can come up to our different materials, and maybe let's just select a random one here, this Lambert. Well, first select your object and right click on it and say assign material to selection, and then come over, click on it, and then come over to the attribute editor. Go ahead and change the color to a red or some color like that. It's very basic for now. Then you can go ahead and close the Hypershade tool and select your plane, and we're going to go change a couple settings to make it look a little more realistic. Go into, click on the nucleus node, and go ahead and increase the wind speed to maybe 6, and we'll have to check on which way the wind is going to know what to change that to. Wind speed, yeah, change it. Okay. So go ahead and play your animation and see what's happening. Okay, so the wind seems to be blowing not the direction we want. So let's put it back and select it, click the nucleus. Let's try leaving this one at 0 because I think it was going sideways from the direction it's facing. Let's try putting this one at 1. Okay, let's try doing that one at -1 and see what happens. And we'll try increasing the wind speed too. I don't know why this keeps jumping over there. Yeah, let's increase the wind speed a bit. It's starting to blow in the wind, and if you increase the speed, you can see how it affects it. Wow, the wind's probably too strong. Alright, so that's the basics for creating a flag. I was going to show how to do some lighting, but I think the next thing we're going to do is just show you another type of particle system. For this next type of particle system, go up to Create Polygon Primitives and click on Cylinder Options. Let's go ahead and make the radius something like 3, and let's make our height small, maybe 4. Leave our axis divisions, let's set our height divisions way lower, maybe 2. Cap divisions 1 is fine. Okay, click create. Now let's rotate it. Move it up a little. Maybe it is too big. Go ahead and scale it down just a little bit. Then you can right click on it and go to either face or multi-selection, and then you can select several faces to delete. And let's go ahead and delete the ends. Delete, adjust it a little bit so it's going to start to look more like a pipe. Go back to scale, and let's make it longer, rotate it a bit. Alright, now we got a chute for a water spout. Let's create another cylinder, and let's move that up as a water spout. And make it a little longer, rotate it a little, and let's move it over to the front. Alright, now let's go ahead and we're in our end dynamics menu set, and then go to end particles, and create end particles, create emitter. Go ahead and click the checkbox next to it, call it emitter water. Let's set our particle rate up some more, click create, and now let's just move that over to inside this pipe. What we're going to need to do is convert these shapes, make sure they're polygons. So click here, convert. I think this one might be a nerve, so convert nerve to polygon. Yeah, and then go ahead and select it, and then go up to end mesh, create passive collider. Go ahead and do that with this pipe as well. It's already a polygon surface, so it'll work fine. Create passive collider. That makes it so that the particles don't just fall right through it. So let's go ahead and push play and see what's happening. Alright, we can see our particles are not doing anything we want them to do. So let's go ahead and push stop. Let's go ahead and select the particles, and then on your attribute editor, click the emitter, and then let's go ahead and change the direction that the emitters are going. And again, you can look at your XYZ system in the corner to know which way to go. We need it to go in the X direction, and it's going to be negative because we want to go the opposite way that this line is pointing. So let's come up to find where it says direction. Alright, right here. Here's the X. Let's set that at -1. Turn this Z direction to 0. There we go. Now it's looking right. Alright. So the next setting that we want to do, we want to go in and go to particle shape, particle size, radius looks good, and let's go through and just change some more settings. Go to collisions. For liquid simulations, we want a self-collide width scale and collide width scale to be less than 1, so that the particles get closer together to each other. So let's set this at 0.5 maybe, and same with maybe the collide width set to 0.7. That way it doesn't look like they're falling through. Let's give it a little bit of friction. Let's leave stickiness maybe 0.001 because that adds up really quick. When liquid simulation, that sounds like something we want if it's going to be a liquid radius scale. Let's turn that down a little. Viscosity 0.1 sounds good. Anyway, you can go through and start tweaking these on your own to get it to start working more like what you want. The scale attributes. Space scale, if you turn that, I think, down. Well, before I do that, I just want to make sure I know what it's looking like currently. Okay, I can see it's projecting out too far, so that's another one I can change. But the space scale, let's see what happens when I put it to 0.5. Okay, yeah, they're getting closer together, but it looks to me like they're kind of wadding up too much, which that might be the friction that I set or the stickiness. So I could go in and change that a bit. But first I'm going to change this projected distance. So let's go to the emitter, distance, and direction. So this max distance, let's pull that way down, minimum distance way down. And let's just see what that looks like. It's a little better. Yeah, we definitely need to get rid of that stickiness. So that was under, I believe, collisions. Friction, set it to 0.001, just like stickiness. Let's see how that works. Yeah, it's flowing a lot better. To wrap this up real quick, I'm running out of time, but last couple items to note is that you can let it run for a minute and go up to end solver and click initial state, and then you can set from current, and now at time frame 1 it will start with it already running. And then as you adjust settings, when you've done stuff that you know is good and you want to start tweaking it towards making it to start look more like natural water, then you can go ahead and click this symbol here to open the render view, and then you can just start looking at what it's starting to look like. And you can see right now it's kind of a blobby water-like mixture. So you can just keep playing with it, and you can change the color and shading and a bunch of other attributes until you start to get it to look like water. So there you have it. That's the basics for particles, and you should have a little enough to a primer to get you started. Thanks for watching.